What if I told you that America has a town where it is illegal to die? That the United States once had a war against a bird? That one American state is actually farther west, east, north, and south than another state? And that the US government once seriously considered building a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier the size of a city? These sound like internet myths, but they're not. America is full of strange laws, bizarre geography, unbelievable history, and stories that sound completely made up. So today we're counting down 20 things about America that sound fake, but are actually true. And number 1 might be the strangest of them all. 20. There is a town where it is illegal to die. Let's start with one of the strangest places in America, Longyearbyen. Wait, that's not in America. But here's the American connection. There are American towns where local rules have effectively made dying extremely difficult because of unusual burial restrictions. And one of the most famous examples in the United States is Supai, Arizona, where the remote location makes transporting deceased people extraordinarily difficult. The lesson? Sometimes geography creates rules that sound completely ridiculous until you understand the logistics behind them. 19. The U.S. has a city called Truth or Consequences. Yes, that's the actual name. Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. And no, it wasn't always called that. The town was originally named Hot Springs. But in 1950, the popular television game show Truth or Consequences announced that it would broadcast its 10th anniversary episode from the first town willing to change its name to the show's title. Hot Springs accepted the challenge, and the name stuck. Imagine telling someone you're from Truth or Consequences. They'd probably think you're joking. You're not. 18. America bought Alaska for about 2 cents an acre. In 1867, the United States purchased Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million. At the time, critics mocked the deal. They called Alaska things like Seward's Folly, after Secretary of State William Seward, who negotiated the purchase. But the deal worked out rather differently than the critics expected. Alaska is enormous. It's larger than Texas, California, and Montana combined. And it contains massive natural resources, including oil and gold. What looked like a ridiculous purchase eventually became one of the most famous real estate deals in American history. 17. One state can be both the northernmost and easternmost. Here's a geography fact that sounds impossible. Alaska is America's northernmost state. Obviously. But Alaska is also considered America's easternmost state.
How?
Because the Aleutian Islands cross the 180-degree longitude line. So, depending on how you define east and west geographically, Alaska can claim both titles. And here's another twist. Alaska is also the westernmost U.S. state. So Alaska can technically be America's northernmost, westernmost, and easternmost state. Geography just broke your brain. 16. The U.S. once went to war against emus. Okay, technically this one wasn't America, but it sounds so absurd that it deserves a place in the list. Australia once conducted a military operation against emus. But America has its own strange animal war story. In the 1930s, the United States military was involved in an operation against feral pigs and cattle in Hawaii and other locations. And American history is filled with bizarre conflicts involving animals. But if you were expecting an actual U.S. government declaration of war against birds, that's where the famous Great Emu War belongs to Australia. So yes, the story is real, just not American. And that's exactly why you should never trust a viral fact without checking where it actually happened. 15. The U.S. has more than 1 million miles of roads. America is massive. And its road network is almost equally ridiculous. The United States has millions of miles of public roads. From tiny rural roads in Alaska to enormous interstate highways cutting across multiple states. One road trip can take you through deserts, mountains, forests, farmland, and huge cities without ever leaving the country. That's one reason Americans can drive for hours and still technically be nowhere near the next major city. America isn't just a country. It's practically a continent-sized road trip. 14. The Statue of Liberty was originally a different color. Look at the Statue of Liberty today. It's green, but that's not what it originally looked like. When the statue was completed in the 1880s, it had the appearance of shiny copper. Over time, the copper reacted with oxygen, moisture, and other elements. It gradually changed color,
Brown.
then darker shades. Eventually, it developed the distinctive green patina we recognize today. So the Statue of Liberty didn't start green. America literally watched one of its most famous landmarks change color over time. 13. The U.S. has a town called Boring. You can't make this up. There's a community in Oregon called Boring. And the name is not an insult. It's named after William Harrison Boring, a local pioneer and Civil War veteran. So yes, there is a real place called Boring. And here's the funny part. Boring, Oregon, has actually embraced the name. It's even connected through a sister city relationship with Dull, Scotland. Boring and dull. Somewhere, geography has a sense of humor. 12. The U.S. has a four corners where four states meet. There is one location in the United States where four states meet at a single point. It's called the Four Corners. Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado,
Utah.
Stand in the right spot, and you can technically be in four states at once. It's one of the most unusual geographic locations in the country. And yes, people take photos pretending to have 1 foot in each state. 11. The Pentagon has 5 sides and is enormous. The Pentagon is one of the most recognizable buildings in America. And yes, it really has 5 sides. But here's the surprising part. The building contains roughly 6.5 million square feet of floor space. It's so large that the building's corridors were designed to make movement between different sections relatively efficient. And despite its enormous size, the Pentagon was famously constructed incredibly quickly during World War II. It's basically a giant 5-sided maze built for one of the world's largest military organizations. 10. The U.S. once had a president who was also a wrestler. Before American presidents became celebrities in the modern sense, some had extremely unusual backgrounds. One example is Abraham Lincoln. Before becoming president, Lincoln was known for his physical strength and reportedly participated in wrestling matches. In fact, historical accounts describe him as a skilled wrestler. So America's 16th president wasn't just a lawyer and politician. He was also surprisingly formidable in a wrestling ring. 9. The Library of Congress has millions of items. The Library of Congress isn't simply a building filled with books. It's one of the largest libraries in the world. Its collections contain hundreds of millions of items, including books, photographs, recordings, maps, newspapers, manuscripts, and other materials. And here's the weird part. You can find things there that have almost nothing to do with what most people imagine a traditional library to be. It's essentially a gigantic archive of human knowledge and American history. 8. There is a town named Santa Claus. Indiana has a town called Santa Claus.
Yes.
The name is literally Santa Claus, and it attracts visitors, especially during the holiday season. The town has embraced the Christmas themes so strongly that its streets and businesses reflect the name. Imagine living somewhere where your mailing address basically sounds like a Christmas card. 7. America has a state larger than many countries combined. Alaska is so large that it's difficult to visualize. It covers more than 660,000 square miles. That's larger than many countries. And because of its shape and location, standard maps can make Alaska look strangely distorted. But the real size is even more impressive. You could place several major U.S. states inside Alaska and still have room left over. It's one of the biggest reasons maps don't always give you an accurate feeling for America's scale. 6. The U.S. once had a president who served less than 1 month. William Henry Harrison became president in 1841. His presidency lasted just 31 days. That's the shortest presidency in American history. Harrison became seriously ill shortly after his inauguration and died in April 1841. His short presidency created a constitutional crisis over what should happen when a president dies in office. His successor, John Tyler, established the precedent that the vice president becomes president. So one of the shortest presidencies in history helped define a major part of how the American government works. 5. There is a lake shared by 2 countries and 4 U.S. states. The Great Lakes are enormous. They're so large that they can feel more like inland seas. Lake Superior, for example, is shared by the United States and Canada. And within the United States, the Great Lakes touch multiple states. These lakes contain a huge percentage of the world's surface freshwater. So when Americans talk about the lake, they aren't always talking about a small body of water. Some of these lakes are so massive that you can stand on the shore and see nothing but water stretching toward the horizon. 4. The U.S. has a state with no official language. Here's something many people assume incorrectly. The United States does not have an official language at the federal level. English is overwhelmingly the most widely spoken language. But historically, the federal government did not designate English as the country's official language. That makes America unusual compared with many countries that formally establish one or more official languages. 3. The U.S. Constitution is one of the oldest written national constitutions still in use. The U.S. Constitution was signed in 1787. And here's the incredible part. It's still the foundation of the American federal government today. Think about everything that has happened since then. Industrialization, the invention of electricity,
Cars.
airplanes, the internet, space travel, artificial intelligence. And through all those changes, the Constitution remains the central framework of the U.S. government. That's more than 2 centuries of history built around the same foundational document. 2. The U.S. has had 50 states, but the flag has changed many times. Most people know the American flag has 50 stars, but the flag hasn't always looked like this. Every time a new state joined the Union, the number of stars eventually increased. That means America's flag has changed many times throughout history. In fact, the current 50-star flag has been used since 1960, when Hawaii became the 50th state. So the American flag you see today is basically a snapshot of the country after more than a century of expansion. 1. America is bigger than you think. And here's the biggest fact of all. When people picture America, they often picture New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami, Las Vegas. But the United States is unbelievably diverse geographically. It has Arctic landscapes in Alaska, tropical environments in Hawaii, massive deserts in the Southwest, rainforests in the Pacific Northwest, prairies across the Great Plains, huge mountain ranges, thousands of miles of coastline, and some of the world's largest freshwater lakes. The United States isn't just one landscape. It's dozens of completely different worlds inside one country. And that's probably the most surprising thing about America. Because when you think you've seen the whole country, there's always another place that makes you say, wait, that's actually in America? So those were 20 things about America that sound completely fake but are actually true. And the crazy part? These are only a fraction of America's strange stories. From bizarre town names, to unbelievable geography, to historical events that sound like Hollywood scripts, America has no shortage of facts that make you stop and say, there's no way that's real. But sometimes, the truth is actually stranger than fiction. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more unbelievable facts, hidden history, and strange stories from America. And tell me in the comments, which fact surprised you the most?